Hi, Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Let me see if I can turn my camera on here.
That would be great.
Cool. Hey.
Hi. Good to see you, or good to meet you. I don't actually.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm
Good
just been a fan of the cast until now.
Thanks a lot. Well, then you know our host, Ali Vallarta. Here she is.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, Ali. Good to meet you.
How you doing?
Good.
To meet
Good.
you.
Okay. So before we get started, I just wanted to run through your tech setup. Now, you told me that you have a podcast situation. I need to understand what that is.
So, sure. I'm recording on a Blue Yeti. So hopefully the audio will be pretty good and I can just send it to you guys. I'm recording a few different ways. I don't have headphones, but hopefully...
No headphones?
Yes.
You're a podcaster.
I know, but hopefully these three different recordings will work out. I have the mic kind of set up so it will hopefully pick up just me and not the speakers. So we'll see. But I can help you try to clean up the audio if needed. So.
Okay. Well, you know, it's our job to clean up the audio. Headphones, we always recommend headphones because we don't want the Zoom to bleed into your audio, whatever you're recording on. So is there any way to, do you have any headphones anywhere? Like,
not really. I mostly just have Bluetooth ones, so.
We could try Bluetooth. We can try Bluetooth if you can connect to your computer.
Yeah, I don't think I can. I'm on my desktop and I don't really have a Bluetooth thing on here, so hopefully this will just work out. So.
Hoping for the best. I will record the Zoom. And,
recording in progress.
I mean, your audio does sound good.
Okay.
Probably because you're plugged into that Blue Yeti. But it really just becomes difficult if there's, crossover, bleed through from Ali into yours. So,
yeah. Maybe can you turn the volume down on your computer so that it's like loud enough that you can hear me?
Yeah.
Maybe quieter than normal.
I'm also recording twice on here, so like the Zoom will be recording, and then I'm recording on my phone three times, and I'm recording on Audacity on my computer with my speaker or my mic. So hopefully Audacity will work, and I can kind of go through and try to clean up the rest. But I don't know. We'll see.
No, I don't want you to clean up anything. No,
Okay.
Have you send me everything you have, okay?
All right, sure. I'm sure one of these will be good. So hopefully.
We're not worried about necessarily how clear your voice sounds because you do sound really good right now.
Okay.
It's more just we don't want my voice echoing.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, maybe turn the volume on your computer down so that you can you can legally hear me.
Let's turn the subtitles on.
It's not super loud so that and I'll try and be measured and.
Okay.
I don't plan on yelling at you. But,
well, it might be fun.
I
don't know.
I'll do it the Shakespearean way.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, cool.
We're gonna roll with it, and I'll just have you send me everything that you have, and then I'll determine what works best for us. Okay?
All right. Sounds good.
Cool. And Michael, I just wanted to be really clear at the start of this. I mentioned to you that this is not a debate, right?
Sure.
You're recording all of these conversations before they air, so none of you have heard the other person's conversation.
Sure.
Or will hear it. And there will be room for debate probably further down the line, but we brought you on really to talk about your ideas. To be honest, if we spend a lot of time dunking on the current mayor, I'm gonna have to cut that. So,
well, let me just start off the bat here, because my campaign's kind of different. I'm not a politician. This is actually the first election I've ever ran in, and I'm specifically running I'm sure you guys have heard of me as a Pantages guy in the theater and all that stuff. I'm specifically running out of the corruption from that, and I'm running as an anti-corruption candidate. So this ties into how the city is using public funds, how accountability and transparency work. It also ties directly into homelessness because the Pantages was worth $20 million, but they gave it away for free to developers, so it's this kind of is it's hard to not talk about the elephant in the room, where we're talking about homelessness, but it's not like a vacuum issue. It's about our entire city, how public money is being worked out, how people come and get accountability and talk to their elected leaders. and all that sort of thing. So I don't know how I'm supposed to not talk about any of that. So.
Well, I mean, we've prepped, right? And we've seen your homelessness plan.
Sure.
That's what we're going to be asking you questions about. So I would really try to, stay focused on the topic at hand. But yeah, just so you know, if you make a claim about the mayor or the current administration, I'm gonna have to fact check it to my best ability.
Well, one of the reasons.
I can't have any attacks on this administration.
Well, I don't know if it's an attack. It's these are factual statements. They can be backed up. Her campaign donations are a matter of public record.
But we're not talking about campaign donations. We're talking about
sure, but this goes into homelessness. If we're trying to do homelessness, and then the current administration is not serving the public, is taking extreme donations from developers and doing all these things, it literally ties directly into homelessness. I don't see how it wouldn't. But and again, it's like, I'm happy to talk about whatever, but then the other side of this too is like, for your guys' podcast, it's like, are you trying to do real journalism? Are you trying to talk about the real issues? Or are you just trying to talk about specific things and not really worry about other factual things? Right, right.
We're going to ask you about homelessness. We're going to ask you about your platform around homelessness.
Sure.
And that's the conversation that we're going to have. So, yeah, I mean, just got to put that out there that this is how we're going about these, all of these interviews.
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions, but obviously, like I mentioned, these issues aren't, pillar issues. They're all tied together in terms of what our entire city is doing. So, anyway.
Well, we'll see how it goes, but I wanted to put that disclaimer out there that this is how we're approaching this. So,
all right.
I am gonna fade into the background and we'll get into it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Let's do it. Okay. Michael Valentine, you've announced your intention to run for mayor of Salt Lake. And you've been homeless before in this city, as you've discussed.
Yeah.
How has that experience influenced your approach to homelessness policy?
So I've been a candidate for a while. I actually announced in July of 2021, so I was the first one to kind of jump in the race, and I was excited to see Rocky jump in. Excited to see more people jump in, really. But yeah, then when I first moved to Salt Lake, moved back. I was born in Salt Lake, grew up in Logan, went to Utah State up there. I moved back in the summer of 2012. I just didn't have any money to get an apartment, and housing was a lot better back then. But I just lived in a tent in the woods. So I hit a tent up Immigration Canyon, and I was homeless for about 3 months. But I want to definitely preface that I was homeless from a place of privilege. I wasn't injured. I was had good health. I had a car, so I could drive around. I could sleep in the car, which is a big thing. And then I also had food stamps and stuff like that, so I was able to eat and things. But it impacts you a lot. That experience is one that sticks with you for your entire life. I just remember being exhausted all the time and like going to a park and just passing out, and trying to find somewhere to sleep, trying to find somewhere to shower. It's just a lot of work, and your whole mindset is like a 24-hour cycle of like, what am I to do to eat? What am I to do to sleep this day? And, and I just really had to try to pull myself up and get money to get an apartment and a down payment. And not everyone can do that. So, but yeah, it really impacts a lot. And then I was almost homeless again this last October. I was illegally evicted. And without, family and support, I'd probably be homeless right now. So,
well, specific to homelessness policy, because you are running for mayor, how has this experience influenced how you think about this issue?
Yeah, I think this is a very important conversation because we need to change the way how we think about homelessness in general. A lot of the people that are involved with homelessness, even if they have good intentions, they've never been homeless. It's a totally different thing if you have that personal experience. And I think a lot of the people that are homeless are in sheltered community right now. They know exactly what they need. They know the problems they have. They know the problems of the shelter. They know how to solve these issues, and they're being ignored and not being listened to. So I think it's massive to have someone run for office who has been homeless. I think it's the most important thing to listen to the voices of the people that we're trying to help.
Yeah. Well, you've got a list of goals around homelessness on your Facebook page, on your campaign page. And the number one goal that I saw there was declaring homelessness a citywide emergency. What would that accomplish?
I think it just changes the nature of how we talk about this issue. I think it is an emergency, and I think it needs to have an emergency response. This issue just keeps going on and on and on. The road home was destroyed in 2012 or 2019, sorry, and we've been not had enough beds since then. But I think declaring an emergency situation shows that we're serious about doing something about it right now. Not like in 2 years, not in 3 years, but like in the next 6 months, in the next 9 months, in the next 3 months. Doing something within 30 days. I think it's definitely an emergency issue. I think it's next to the Great Salt Lake. Homelessness is probably the biggest issue Salt Lake City faces. And again, it really ties to all these other issues. It's like a spider web. These issues aren't alone. Housing affects business, affects tourism, affects education, affects healthcare. It's really the base stability we need to then grow and worry about these other issues. So.
Mm-hmm. When we declare a state of emergency, and I feel like this is something we all became really familiar with during the pandemic.
Yeah, and the windstorm.
Yeah, and the windstorm and the earthquake. We think a lot about, there's sort of like the theoretical state of emergency, but then there's also the really practical state of emergency and what that means from a technical perspective.
Sure.
So from a technical perspective, like what would declaring a state of emergency accomplish from a policy standpoint?
Yeah, I think again it allows things to move quicker and allows us to bring in more seriousness to the issue. Like we saw with the earthquake, with these other things. Sometimes these issues are massive and they need an emergency response. And to me, it really is just again the importantness of making this the number one issue where we're not kicking the can down the road. An emergency is a temporary thing, right? So it sets us up so we can immediately attack this and solve this issue. I'm running to cure homelessness, which sounds insane, but it really is not that crazy when we stop and think about why do we put up with homelessness? Why is this something we just kick down the can and we're just perpetually used to dealing with and not actually ending? And there's a lot of amazing stuff going around the world. Houston was able to put 25,000 people directly into houses. Finland is doing amazing work right now. So it's again, I think, kind of the core idea of what I'm trying to do here is just change the nature of how we look at homelessness in general as something this can end in our lifetime. This is something we can not have to deal with. We can house everybody in the city and create a city for kindness and compassion and empathy where, it just doesn't exist anymore here.
Well, activists and unsheltered residents, and I think just Salt Lakers in general, have been critical of the camp abatements that happen here.
Yep.
Which is when the Salt Lake County Health Department and Salt Lake City partner to clean up, tear down camps for health and safety reasons. They are terrible to witness. You have said that you want to make abatements illegal.
Yep.
But this is technically a function of the Salt Lake County Health Department. So I'm curious how you would work with the county to forge a better way.
Yeah, well, it is a function of the health department, but it's also involving city tax dollars when a lot of these officers are being paid overtime, millions and millions of dollars paid overtime to go do this. So it's not just the health department, it's not just the county, the city is involved with this too. I think the abatements are, crimes against humanity. I don't know if you guys have ever been out into abatement and seen it firsthand. It's devastating. A few years ago, this is on video, I was out in abatement and a guy had a suitcase thrown away. And in his suitcase was books, medicine, and clothes. And they put it in this trailer and I was with him and I tried to go get it, and the health department person said, "Oh, you can't get it. This is a health hazard." So I was like, "Do you want to go on record of saying books, medicine, and clothes are a health hazard? This is just a guy's suitcase. His life belongings are in there." People have had ashes thrown away of loved ones, jewelry, unmistakable stuff that can't be replaced. And that's not has anything to do with health and cleanliness. We can go in and clean these places. We don't have to throw everyone's belongings away. So I think they're very cruel. I think they're just really devastating. And the fact that we've had hundreds and hundreds of them the last several years is just really appalling to me. I think they should be seen as crimes against humanity. And in my plan, with the emergency situation, the next step was from there, and this is something Rocky supports as well, is creating sanctioned camping areas. And again, I hate that word, camping. I think it's disgusting to use that too. These people aren't camping. Camping's a recreational activity. These people are surviving on the streets. They have nowhere else to go. So we need these sanctioned areas, though, where people can just stay and belong, where these abatements, just won't happen. I also said I would ban homeless architecture from the city, which is, again, really disgusting, and having more public bathrooms and things like this. Just the way we treat homelessness is kind of is
I want to
heartbreaking.
clarify the meaning of homeless architecture for people who don't know.
Yeah.
You're referring to hostile architecture, so like replacing grass with rocks,
Right.
designing park benches so that someone can't lay across it.
Yep.
That's what you mean? Okay.
Right, yeah, that also, places you try to go. This affects, people that are housed as well. You try to go to the store, the gas station, sometimes you can't use restrooms, they just don't have any bathrooms anymore. They have the codes at Smith's on 4th South, you have to go in and find the lock and stuff. So it ties into a lot of these situations. But again, it's just how our society looks at homelessness, and again, from being homeless myself, it's so many people don't realize how close they are to homelessness, and how these people are just trying to get by and live. And I think that's it just shows a form of respect of getting rid of this kind of architecture that attacks them in ways that are just not really helpful. So
I want to linger a little bit on the idea of making abatements illegal, because I think for the average Salt Laker, they're like, oh, okay, interesting idea. We hate witnessing abatements. We hate that they happen. But how, as the mayor of Salt Lake City, would you make them illegal?
Well, basically, with the sanctioned camping, you just don't need them. Again, it's this whole argument, oh, we have to go and just destroy this entire encampment to clean it up is just ridiculous. Instead of just cleaning it, why do we have to throw away tents and sleeping bags instead of washing them in washers and dryers? It just doesn't make any sense, So, having that foundation of this is not how we treat homeless people, I think is so important, because again, it's if anyone has any inkling of these abatements, go watch an abatement up close and go talk to the people crying as their stuff is getting thrown away. But it's important to acknowledge too that these abatements aren't just attacking unsheltered people. They attack our community too. There's so many mutual aid organizations giving out blankets, tents, sleeping bags over and over and over, hundreds and thousands of dollars. They donate and then it instantly gets thrown away. It's just this is just a waste of money. It's cruel. It just needs to not happen anymore.
Yeah. You've called the shelter model a complete failure, and you've proposed abandoning it altogether, though the city doesn't run the shelters, service providers do.
Sure.
So what alternatives are you suggesting?
Yeah, and obviously, this is a bigger conversation with, the county, the state, the federal government of looking at homelessness down the road. But yeah, I think the shelter models are just a complete failure. I have a store in Rio Grande at the Gateway. It's a little cider shop. A lot of unsheltered people come in the store all the time and tell me their stories and stuff. I've had so many people tell me about sexual assault and really extreme stuff happening in the shelters, which is really heartbreaking. But just besides that too is, these shelters, they get kicked out in the morning. They separate people, separate loved ones. A lot of times their belongings get thrown away in there. A lot of people don't like going to the shelters for a reason, and I think we need to listen to our unsheltered community and look at those reasons. Why do these people not want to go to shelter? Is it because they hate housing, or is other stuff going on that is attacking and hurting them in these shelters? I actually think we should turn all the shelters into long-term housing. I think we need to stop looking at the middleman here of the shelters, and we just need to go directly to housing. That's what these people need. They just need to go right into housing.
How logistically do you convert shelters that are currently accommodating, say 300, anywhere from 80 to 300 people a night, to converting them to long-term housing almost instantly? Because it feels like man on the street, what we hear people complaining about the most with regards to homelessness in Salt Lake City is that there aren't enough beds.
Right.
It's not that they necessarily want to see the system upended.
Right. Well, I think it just, it's a conversation. I know there's some people that are helping the unsheltered that might not be at this level yet where they still, want to improve the shelters. I understand that. But it's just, I think it's a longer conversation. I think turning the shelters into long-term housing is actually the slowest part. There's other ways we could get housing faster. There's the This actually ties into the theater of the Pantages Theater I was involved with the redevelopment agency. It's the collection of our property, public tax property, public resources. A lot of that, it's like millions of dollars and dozens and dozens of acres of property that can be converted into housing. And I think the city needs to push back on the state in terms of public housing, rent control, things like that, to actually, give more power back to the city so we can, do what's necessary to solve these problems. So,
well, you've acknowledged that this is perhaps your most ambitious idea, but that is to house everyone within the first year of your term. Now, we don't have a lot of good data on homelessness in the city because the point in time count is conducted as like a county matter, so we don't have countywide data. But I did check the Road Home, which is a service provider that runs a number of shelters, and they said that they sheltered 1,018 people just on the night of Wednesday, February 22nd. That's a lot of bodies.
Sure.
Salt Lake's rental vacancy is currently 2%. So everyone seems to agree that housing is the solution to homelessness, but there are a lot of barriers to creating housing. What policies do you propose to make this happen?
So I actually have a real estate license. I'm a business owner, so I'm kind of like a paradoxical candidate where I'm like an activist, been homeless, but I've also done these other things as well. I have problems with the vacancy numbers. I don't believe in those. And again, my kind of core idea here is that we have the resources and all the tools we need to end homelessness now. The money's not going to the right things. And, how do we spend $60 million on 3 shelters that are full the first night? It just doesn't make any sense. I think there's ways to spend money more effectively. And again, 1,000 people, it might seem like a lot, but there's a lot of these apartment complexes going up right now. 250 units in one of them, so it's not like we need a lot of housing. I mentioned Houston earlier. Was able to house 25,000 people in the last 10 years or so. We don't have 25,000 homeless people. The issue is a lot smaller here. I think there's a lot of effective ways where we could spend money more smart and get people into housing a lot quicker and again, bypass the shelter model. Like the shelter model, one of the reasons I think it's important to abandon that model is it's sucking up a lot of money and it's not even a long-term solution. It's a place where, we need to stop looking at, we need beds for these people versus these people need a house. They need an apartment. They need a stability so they can get back on their feet and get the help they need. So I think we just really need to look at this whole issue in a completely different way.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you to clarify on the vacancy rate? Because that 2% number is from the Kempsey Gardner Institute.
Sure.
How do you perceive vacancy rates in Salt Lake?
I think it's hard to tell. I've looked at a lot of apartment complexes that are 50% vacant. Some of these luxury housing. I have issues. I don't know what the exact number would be, but I think it's a lot higher than 2%. I don't think that's accurate from my experiences in real estate, and then just looking around on, these websites and things, and just being involved in the industry. So I think we need new data. I would like to see new studies done. I'd like to see deeper impact studies into vacancy and stuff like that. But again, too, there's a lot of empty buildings around. This is an interesting conversation, not even just a Utah level, but on a national level. There's about it used to be higher, but there's about 14 million vacant homes in America right now. And even conservative estimates of homelessness is 1-2 million. So even if we gave everybody a house, we'd still have 13 million vacant houses. There's a lot of places to build. There's a lot of housing that's just sitting there. Again, the RDA are a collection of public property. A lot of it is vacant. The city has power to go buy property. They do this all the time. I think we could build, enough housing very quickly to get people directly into it. So,
and that's the redevelopment agency of which the Salt Lake City mayor is the executive director.
Right. Yeah. And then, I'm excited about this tiny home situation with the, I just forgot the name of the group.
The Other Side?
Other Side. Yeah. So,
yeah. You like the tiny homes. You're into
I love tiny homes. Again, I've been in real estate, so I love, new ideas. There's also ways of 3D printing housing and stuff. One of the other cool ideas is this happens a lot outside of Salt Lake. It happened in Logan when I lived there. I had friends that were part of these groups where they go build each other's houses and and kind of have like sweat equity there. So I think that's an option for people that unsheltered that do have the means to work. I think that would be really fantastic. That idea was actually suggested to me from unsheltered people that like I would love to build my own little tiny house. I'm like, that's awesome. My issues with the other side academy is just some of the costs. It seemed like some of these tiny homes are pretty expensive, and then I just have concerns about how they manage and run that. And
well, and I think it's really interesting you bring that up because, I mean, that is an example to me of like a fairly idealistic scenario that has been in the works now for, 3 years? It feels like every year we get a new estimated completion date.
Exactly.
The state has been reticent to fund it. Even some of the members of the homelessness sort of coalition are a little bit reticent about it. And I think it really elucidates the bureaucratic nightmare of a lot of these issues and how much red tape there is around these solutions. And so,
right.
I can't imagine we haven't had mayors before that have been like, I would love to see everyone in this city housed. What kind of policies would you offer that could circumnavigate some of that red tape, because it's very enduring?
Yeah, and I think I think that ties back to the emergency situation and the importance of like, hey, this is a problem we need to solve right now. We're not going to wait 3 years for this. People are dying on the streets. There's a lot of sad situations of people getting their toes amputated right now due to frostbite. I think 160 people died last year due to homelessness. These are completely avoidable, but I think I would try to do as much as I can within the city. I'd try to work with the county and state and the federal government. But I think there's a lot we can do on our own within the city that isn't being done, kind of not having to rely on other people. Salt Lake is the capital city of Utah. We have a lot of resources and power and tools and community that we can all unite. I mentioned the community groups earlier. They do such amazing work out here every day, giving food, giving blankets, really tireless work, thankless work. It's incredible that like the city hasn't, united all these groups together into one massive coalition where all the powers could be used together. So I think a lot of things are ineffective right now. I just don't see things happening in the city that need to happen. It's almost the complete opposite of what these abatements are doing and what some of the current housing policy is.
Yeah. My last question for you refers to something that you yourself brought up, which is this idea that Salt Lake City alone cannot solve homelessness, right? This issue requires a fairly broad coalition, not just of service providers, but city, county, state. You even mentioned the feds.
Sure.
And when it comes to issues that you've shown leadership on in the past, you have been a bit of a controversial figure in the news. There was a local developer that filed a stalking injunction against you.
Sure.
I think for some voters, they might be reticent about what it would look like for you to build a coalition of people who don't see eye to eye with you. So I'd like to ask how you think you could bring all these people to the table around homelessness.
Yeah, so real quick, on the stalking injunction, that's a long story, but that was actually a SLAPP suit filed against me. I never stalked anyone. That was an attempt to silence me for speaking out on the Pantages deal and public corruption that I uncovered. It's an ongoing issue. There's upcoming litigation I can't really speak on, but again, that was a SLAPP suit. I have very definitive proof of that. So again, I'm very happy to work with a lot of people. It's funny you mentioned that the theater. I tried to meet with the mayor on that. I tried to work with her to redevelop the theater and do all that. I tried to meet with the developer that's filed the stalking injunction against me to work with them. So I always try to work with everyone. And then again, too, it's like, it's not about me. I'm just, kind of a tool. I'm just a voice for the community. So it's really all coming from the unsheltered. I'm not leading this fight right now. I'm just trying to amplify the voices of the people that are. And again, I don't know if I quite agree with that assessment, but I think the city can do a lot. I think we could, it might not be 100%, but I think we could get 80, 90% people housed by ourselves. And then I'll work with the rest of the the county, the state, and the feds to support that. But I think there's a fine line between being able to like work with everyone, but then when things are working against the community, to stand up and voice that and not back down and fight for the community and support the community. And I think that's what I've done this entire time, the last several years, as a community organizer, with the theater, with homelessness right now, with the campaign. And I was actually talked into running. So I mentioned this is my first campaign for anything. I'm not like a political politician. A lot of people just ask me to run. They're like, "Hey, you should do this. We support you speaking out for us. We support what you've done for the theater, for the Salt Lake." And they just wanted me to show up for them. So that's what I would do. And, again, just to reiterate, I would work with everyone up to the point I can't. And then I would always defend the community and fight for the community no matter what.
Mayoral candidate Michael Valentine, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Allie. Appreciate it.
See, we did it. We didn't dunk on the mayor.
Well, it's coming, so.
Well, you have 8 months to do it.
Well, I don't know. I'm curious though. Like, I think it's an opportunity. I actually have a background in journalism. Investigative journalism. I just tried to save the theater to watch movies. I'm a filmmaker, and then I like uncovered all the stuff, and I have documents upon documents. So. It's interesting to see people that not that you guys are doing this, but like the Tribune, we've caught them in lies and not reporting facts. So I don't know. It's sad to see, but.
Yeah. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time. I think that this was a really good conversation, and
cool.
Like I said, this is kind of like the beginning.
Sure. Yeah.
We are still planning our election coverage for down the line.
Yeah.
It's weird because there's probably not going to be a primary, right? Because it will be ranked choice voting.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So
less money.
It's less money, which is great. But anyway, just know that this was just kind of the start of this for us, and we really appreciate your time. I'm gonna have you stop your recordings, all of them, and you can email them to me, like as a wave. I think that's totally great.
Okay, cool.
I think you have my email, but I'll just pop it in the chat really quickly. It's been a week, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. You guys have just been doing the cast for like a year, is that right? Just not very long?
Yeah. Our first episode was, I think, November or December 12th, 2021. And that was when we started, we were just doing 2 shows a week. So we started doing 5 shows a week in February.
That's crazy. That's a lot of work.
Like at 1 year being daily.
Yeah.
We have made so much content.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy.
Having a daily cast is intense. It's like so much work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So.
Well,
So
cool.
we'll get your file. Actually, funny enough, after everything with getting tech set up, the minute you and I started talking, Michael, my Zoom or my audition crashed.
Oh, okay.
So we'll both be using our Zoom file.
All right. Yeah, I got a few.
I didn't want to make you start over. We were like 5 minutes in.
Okay. Well, I do have. I recorded a few other on